Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Ezra Rozier here. And our Philadelphia Eagles are 2-0. Not a pretty 2-0, but we're still 2-0 regardless. Now, I'm going to get to the negatives about this game before I get into the positives about this game. Last week in New England, I had a big issue with the offensive play calling. We were giving the ball to Kenneth Gainwell too much and ignoring our other offensive weapons like Dallas Goedert, who had just one target and zero catches. Zero catches against the Patriots last week for Dallas Goedert. And I guess you can also attribute this to the weather. The offense did not look good against the Patriots, and we struggled to move the ball down the field. The offensive play calling was the issues with the offensive play calling, they carried over to the first half of this game against the Vikings yesterday night. What is Brian Johnson doing with some of these calls? What is Brian Johnson doing with this offensive play calling? He's calling plays as if the Eagles don't have weapons out of the wazoo. He's calling plays as if the Eagles need to be in desperation mode because they have absolutely no talent on the offensive side of the ball. That cannot be further from the truth. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins, who suffered a hamstring injury, so hopes to him on a speedy recovery. Like, why is Brian Johnson being so conservative and so vanilla and predictable with these play calls? In the first half, particularly in the first half, the offensive play calling in this game was horrendous. You had the play on second and third down before we kicked the field goal on that opening possession, the first drive of the game. It's like he gives it to Hurts on these keepers. Throw to your weapons. Use your weapons, Brian Johnson. Open up your offense. This offense could be so much more than these designed runs and these keepers for Jalen Hurts. If you guys remember, Jalen Hurts got injured in Chicago last year against the Bears because we were running the ball with him too much. We gave him the ball too much on these keepers. And my fear is that we're going to repeat that mistake and have him run too much and he's going to get injured again, like what happened in the Bears game. Hurts does not need to be keeping the ball and running so much when we have such a diverse and explosive offense like this with all these weapons. And then the screens to Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert, he finally had some catches this season, but why are you throwing screens to Dallas Goedert? Like Goedert, Goedert doesn't seem like a guy on screenplays. He seems like a guy that you could just target down the field with his big body and him just come up and beat the other guy and get a big gain, big chunk plays. But the offensive play calling, I don't like that third down before we kicked the field goal to go up 3-0. That call was horrendous. You basically guaranteed that you wouldn't score a touchdown on that play. You basically said, "Oh, you know what? I don't want a touchdown. Let's just get a field goal. 3 points is good. 3 points is good." Like Brian Johnson, I'm not gonna murder him yet. I'm not gonna totally disparage him yet because it's only 2 games in. But the offensive play calling through 2 games with him as our offensive play caller, it's just with him as the offensive play. I couldn't talk right now. With him as the offensive coordinator through 2 games, it's not looking very promising. Now, that being said, we've only played 2 games. There's 15 games left, and he has a lot of time to right the ship. He has a lot of time to improve his offensive play calling. But Brian Johnson, the offense is way more explosive than you think it is. Like you don't have to just give the ball to Hurts on these keepers and then run all these screens so much, dude. Like open up the offense, throw the ball down the field. Another thing that was pissing me off about this game early on, the Eagles had 2 turnovers. 2 turnovers. The first one resulted from the Vikings special teams. The punt returner, he actually had a decent return. He ended up fumbling the ball, and then the Eagles recover it. So great, we recovered a turnover. But then I believe Hurts ended up throwing an interception on that play, and we get nothing from that turnover. Okay, all right. And then the Vikings commit another turnover. They commit another fumble, and the Eagles fumble. I mean, the Eagles recovered a fumble once again. So that's 2 turnovers recovered by the Eagles in this first quarter. And on that play, because of Brian Johnson's crazy, because of Brian Johnson's very conservative and scared play calling, we end up having to kick a field goal, and Jake Elliott misses the field goal. So that is 2 turnovers by the Eagles resulting in 0 points. 0 points off of 2 turnovers early in this game. That was frustrating. That pissed me off. Two turnovers. Like the Eagles really should have had a 21 nothing lead in this game. They should have had a 21 nothing lead early in this game. The first possession where we kicked the field goal, you should have had a touchdown if you didn't get so dumb with the play calling on second and third down. And then the two fumbles by the Vikings, you got 0 points off of that. 0 points off of two turnovers. That can't happen. You're not going to get away with that against teams like San Francisco and Dallas. Like, what? And then another thing about this game that was really kind of frustrating to me is that the Patriots last week, they were really killing us over the middle with these tight ends. Their tight end, Mike Gesicki, the old guy from Miami, the Patriots were doing major damage to the Eagles across the middle, right down the middle. And the Vikings, they were once again, the Vikings were using the Patriots strategy to beat us down the middle. I'm surprised that we didn't make adjustments on that for the defense with defending the middle, seeing of how vulnerable we were against the Patriots. So that was a concern of mine. But overall, the defense was serviceable yesterday. It wasn't as great as it was in New England, but it was serviceable. Now I'm gonna get to the positives. DeAndre Swift is that dude. DeAndre Swift. He had a career high in rushing yards yesterday. I think he had over 150 yards at least. There was this one drive, I think it was a drive where we went up 13-7. Well, no, the drive where we went up 10-7. Wait, what was the score? I can't remember exactly what we met, but there was this drive. It felt like it was 10 minutes long, and it was entirely DeAndre Swift just grinding the Minnesota Vikings into dust on the ground. The Minnesota Vikings could not stop DeAndre Swift yesterday. They could not stop DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, this is why we should have used him in New England last week. DeAndre Swift is a stone cold killer. I love DeAndre Swift. I was saying I loved him back when he was in Detroit. Back in 2021, I loved DeAndre Swift. The first game last year when we played in Detroit, DeAndre Swift was destroying us. I'm like, look at this dude. I wish we could have him. And then I was saying after, not too long after we let Sanders walk away, that we should trade for DeAndre Swift. We should try to pick up DeAndre Swift. I can't remember if he was a free agent. He might have been. And sure enough, it happens. Agent Zero, DeAndre Swift is an Eagle. And he played extremely well yesterday. He has great vision. He has amazing patience. DeAndre Swift really put a clinic on how to run the ball yesterday against the Minnesota Vikings. He actually had the most rushing yards in a game since LaShawn McCoy in 2013 against the Detroit Lions, the Blizzard Bowl. Man, this is why I was frustrated that we didn't use him against the Patriots last week. DeAndre Swift had just one carry against the New England Patriots in week one. Just one. And Gainwell, I do like Gainwell. He had a strong performance in the playoffs last year. I think he outperformed Miles Sanders in the playoffs last year, but I don't think he's your number one back. He's not the future. He's not the feature back. He's not the top back we have. DeAndre Swift is the most talented back on this roster. The main thing with him is staying healthy. He's had injury issues, but when he's healthy, DeAndre Swift, he will grind you to a pulp. DeAndre Swift is him. He's Himmy Johns. Oh God, that was cringe. I shouldn't have said that. But DeAndre Swift is really that dude. And to see him grind up the Minnesota Vikings yesterday, it was truly a delight to see. Now, another improvement from this game was that the Eagles, they threw the ball down the field more. Against the Patriots, I was talking about earlier, the Eagles were scared to throw the ball down the field. And Jalen Hurts, even though I thought that he was shaky early on with the interception and how he missed Dallas Goedert for a huge sideline catch, and he missed Devontae Smith for a touchdown in the first half, he made some beautiful throws yesterday. Like on the first drive, before we stalled out with the dumb penalty call, the dumb play calling to kick a field goal, he had this one deep throw to Devontae Smith, and it was great. Like Devontae just jumped up, and he totally just like took the ball away from the defender, made the defender look silly, and then he throws an amazing deep touchdown to Devontae Smith later in the game to go up 27-7. We threw the ball down the field more. That's what I enjoyed about this game. We didn't have that scared energy in New England where we was like, we're not going to throw the ball down the field. Let's just give the ball to Kenneth Gainwell 50 million times. It was great. It was great to see that we were developing our offensive playbook with throwing the ball down the field. That was good to see. And I would have to say another thing about this game So this is a negative. After the Eagles went up 27-7 with the Devontae Smith touchdown catch on that beautiful deep throw from Hurts, the Eagles, they let the Vikings slowly crawl back into this game. This game was 27-7, and then we end up winning 34-28. We keep playing around with these teams, and this was an issue last year too. Early in the season, we would score all these points in the first half and then go quiet in the second half and let these teams hang around. We wouldn't put them out of their misery. And I kind of saw that in this game. You're up 27-7, and then you let the Vikings slowly crawl back into it. And then this is actually a closely contested game after a 20-point lead. You're leading 27-21. Minnesota can very easily go ahead at that point and take the lead if they didn't fumble literally every opportunity that they had. Oh, and this was probably the play that changed the game, by the way. So the Minnesota Vikings, they're driving down the field right before halftime. They're just moving the ball right down the field surgically, precisely. Kirk Cousins, he's dicing us up. And Justin Jefferson, he gets the ball and he reaches for the pylon, but he fumbles and it ends up being a touchback. Now, I'm not going to lie. I don't like that rule. I don't like the whole touchback, fumble, touchdown thing. I hate that rule. I don't like the rule. I remember back when and during the 2017 season when we won the Super Bowl, the Dallas Cowboys were playing the Oakland Raiders, and Derek Carr did the same thing, and they lost that game. The Raiders lost that game off that fumble touchback BS. And I don't like the rule, but it's not a bad call. People were saying it was a bad call. It's not a bad call. It's a bad rule. And I would like to see it go, but as it stands, it's a rule. It's going to be enforced, so we just got to deal with it. The Minnesota Vikings, they had a prime scoring opportunity here to go up 14-10, and Justin Jefferson, he fumbles the ball for a touchback. If you guys remember, Justin Jefferson was put on a milk carton last year against Darius Slay in Monday Night Football Week 2. I think he only had like 49 yards. Darius Slay jumped in front of him for 2 picks off Kirk Cousins. And to, to Jefferson's credit, he did do a lot better against us in this game, but it kind of gets overshadowed by the fact that you had a fumble go outside the pylon for a touchback when your team could have taken a 14-10 lead heading into halftime. And so I mentioned earlier how the Eagles they didn't capitalize off of 2 turnovers. They got 0 points off of 2 turnovers. So we get the ball back again after the fumble by Jefferson outside of the end zone, outside the pylon. And then Jake Elliott, the hero from last week, the guy who kicked 4 field goals against the Patriots, including 2 over 50 in the second half, he kicks a 61-yard field goal to give us a 13-7 lead at halftime. A 61-yard field goal. That ties his career longest, which we all remember against the New York Giants in week 3, 2017, the Super Bowl season. The play that I think propelled the Eagles into that 9-game winning streak, which saw them become the best team in the NFL, eventually foreshadowing their win in the Super Bowl against New England. Jake Elliott hit a 61-yard field goal. He missed the field goal earlier in this game, but he redeemed himself 61 yards. Jake Elliott, yes, he had a miss, but he redeemed himself. You can't kill him. He kicked a 61-yard field goal, ladies and gentlemen. And in practice against New England last week, I think Britton Covey was saying that he saw Jake Elliott kick a 55-yard field goal that would have been good from 60. Jake Elliott, I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves. He's been a franchise kicker for a long time now, guys. We've had him since the 2017 season. Howie Roseman swiped him off the Cincinnati Bengals practice squad, and he has delivered in the clutch for us time after time. Now, his 2019 and 2020 seasons weren't so hot, but Jake Elliott, he has been a dependable kicker. And I think it's not crazy to say that he's nipping on the heels of David Akers to become the best kicker in Eagles franchise history. He's kicked 2 61-yard field goals. He set the record for longest field goal made by a rookie in the Super Bowl right after Brandon Graham strip sacked Tom Brady and Derek Barnett recovered the fumble. Jake Elliott, I'm very grateful for him. I think he's a top 5 kicker. I think he's a top 5 kicker. So the Eagles are 2-0. The Minnesota Vikings committed 4 turnovers. We didn't capitalize on the first two, but we did score off the final 2 turnovers. And it was sloppy, but the Eagles, they survived it like they survived in New England. It's like the first half of this game, it seems like the reverse of the New England game. Against the Patriots in New England, I thought that the Eagles were capitalizing off of turnovers, like getting the pick six with Darius Slay and then scoring the Devontae Smith touchdown on a short field after Zeke fumbled, but they were scared to move the ball down the field. They were scared to they didn't move the ball well on offense down the field. In this game, I felt like in the first half we were moving the ball well, but we weren't scoring off of turnovers. It's amazing how they were kind of flip flop there. But we're 2-0. We get a little bye week, so that means Bradbury, he will definitely be ready for our next game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. Quez Watkins, he hamstrings tend to be lingering injuries, so I'm anticipating him to be out for quite a little bit. And hopefully, all the other guys who were injured as well, Reed Blankenship, Kenneth Gainwell, they'll be ready for the Buccaneers too. Kenneth Gainwell, even when he comes back, DeAndre Swift has to stay as your number one running back. This game yesterday, do you really need to see anything else from DeAndre Swift to know that he's the best running back on this team? Do you? So take care, everybody, and go Birds.